good? We live? All right, sweet. I just have to start by saying, I cannot imagine a conference that was put together with a better theme for me to be your keynote speaker. So give it up for me getting to live my dream of speaking at a conference about heroic leadership. I mean, what are the odds? I didn't know this even existed. So here's where I want to start. I've been a professional speaker since 2010, and I've been doing this for a long time. I know the difference between a good talk and a great talk. A good talk often has to do with the content of the talk, but a great talk, or a really truly great talk, has very little to do with me. It actually has to do more with the energy in this room. So I'm going to start off with a few recommendations of how you can get the most out of this talk and make it a better experience for me, which is really why you're all here. So the first thing is, if you're feeling what I'm talking about, just a simple smile back at me. I know some of you are behind masks, but I can see it in the eyes. Or any sort of energy that says you're really feeling what I'm putting down, okay? So if you're the type that's really digging on this heroic leadership and everything I'm about to talk about, just give it back to me. Doesn't have to be verbal, just be energy, okay? Now, by contrast, if you're not feeling what I'm saying, if I'm going through this and you're like, wow, this guy does not get it. Weird, I don't like it. Whatever it might be, that's fine. It's not a perfect talk. It's a really awesome talk. It's not a perfect talk. So if at any point you're not feeling it, that's totally fine. I give you full permission to not be feeling what I'm talking about. But here's my request to you. Look for at least one thing that you can walk away with that will change your life in some way or another. Even if it's that you completely disagree with every single thing that I say and you're going to go your own way, okay? And then the final thing is, and I don't know if this is a thing, but if any of you feel like taking notes, that's completely your business. I'm not going to stop you from doing it, but I would request that you try and stay present in this moment. We're going to talk about some really important stuff. And if you get a notification on your phone, I am willing to bet it's going to be there when my talk is over. Okay? So let's get started on this. So where should we start? What are we going to talk about today? What we are going to talk about today is, I'm going to show you how to become superhuman. There's a process to it, and I'm going to reveal the entire thing to you today. But we should start by talking about the word superhuman. What do I mean when I say that? Because we all have to be on the same page about what we're talking about here today. So superhuman, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is someone who has extraordinary abilities. Now I know that the topic here is heroic leadership, and I'm not talking about superheroes just yet. I'm talking about superhumans. And the difference would be, get my slide up there real quick. The difference is a superhero is about how you use your abilities, not the abilities themselves. So today we're going to talk about superheroes, or superhumans, not superheroes, okay? So that's just to set the stage. So how does one become a superhuman? There are three ways. The first would be that it happens by birth. You're born with some sort of innate ability. This is the Superman. This is the X-Men. You are born with something about you that is different. All of you out there in this audience right now fall into this group. Something about you is remarkable. Also, you could be in an accident. Something like getting bitten by a radioactive spider or some sort of traumatic event in your life. Got news for you. All of you probably fall into this crew as well. And then the final is through training. And judging by the attendance here at a workshop, a seminar, or a group of different speakers like this, chances are you're all part of the training crew as well. That's our Batmans. Okay, so can you keep my slides up there for me? Thanks. I have to start with a question for you because becoming superhuman isn't easy. So I have to ask you, what do you want? And I want to take you just a second right now. If you could just do me the honor of just stop and think for a second. What do you want in this moment right now? What are you looking to accomplish? I know you're all here for a reason. You don't join an organization like this, do the things you do for no reason. What do you want? Everybody wants something. Some people want to start a side hustle. Some people want to grow as a leader. Some people might want to take on a new project and then just leave it open for you to fill in the blank there. But I want you to think about what you want. Hopefully you all have it locked in right now because I have a follow-up important question for you, which is, why do you want that? Why? Why? Deep inside of you, think for a second, why do you want that? And then the follow-up question to that would be, what's stopping you from already being there? These are what we're going to cover today, and this is what we have to answer to be able to become superhuman. So the answer to why, when you really thought about why, deep down in there somewhere is something about your values. It's something that's important to you, deeply inside of you. And the what's stopping you, there's really two things. There's two reasons why people don't live up to their potential and fully become superhuman. The first is that they get stuck. They get stuck in fear, uncertainty, doubt, and sometimes apathy. That usually happens when you get a little older. The second reason is that they don't know how. We don't talk enough about what it takes, the process. We learn, we go through formal education, but we don't necessarily talk about what it takes to do something absolutely extraordinary. These are two things I have to cover today. So let's talk about it. So what do I want? I'll tell you what I want. I want to change the world. I want to make it safer. I want it to be kinder, and I want it to be more equitable. That's my goal. So thought about that. How does one change the world? Well, I need togetherness, alignment, and action, which means I need to get all of you on board with what I'm talking about, and I need to get you aligned in my vision of what it is to change the world. And I have to do this on stage after stage after stage. And then I need you all to take action. That's the outcome of today's talk. So how am I going to do it? Well, I'm going to have to transform you all into superheroes, because that's the only way we're going to change the world. It's the only way we're going to save the world. We need people who are powerful and full of ability to do extraordinary things. So here's my plan. My plan is, one, become superhuman myself, discover how it works, then share it with the world so that I can create an army of superhumans. Every one of you out here, I want on the team. And then finally, give you the values so that you can go out and become superheroes in the world. That's today's plan. And I'm talking about everybody. I'm talking about every teacher you've ever had. I'm talking about every firefighter. I'm talking about every nice person that's just out there trying to make a small difference in the world. I want to reach all of them. I want to change this world, make it safer, kinder, more equitable. So what better place to start to explain the why question? Why do I want this? Well, let's start at the origin story. I was born in 1980. Yeah, I'm old, I know. So what else happened in 1980? 1980 was the year that Superman 2 came out. And this was pivotal for me. I was really all about this. Brace yourselves for the cuteness. I was really into Superman, like super into Superman. Thought about it every day, all day. From the time I woke up until literally when I went to sleep. It was the only thing I thought about. I used to tie a red towel around my neck everywhere I went. Disney, Six Flags. I didn't come to Kalahari, sorry. But I had it on all the time. And when I put that on, when I tied that red towel around my neck, I believed with every cell in my body that I could fly. I believed that I could do everything that Superman could do. I mean, I was a kid, but I did truly believe it. Here's a couple things about Superman you might not know. You might know. Well, for one, he began his life as an alien on a foreign planet because his home literally exploded. It's tragic, and it makes you sympathetic to a lot of what's going on in the world today. Second, he always used his powers for good. Don't look at all of the alternate storylines and stuff. There are some where it gets wonky. But point is, he always uses his powers for good. Now, this is what I really want to talk about because I started with it. In 1980, Superman 2 came out, and Superman 2 was a pivotal movie in my life. I learned so much from it. So let me tell you about Superman 2. For those of you who probably haven't seen it, I'm talking about the one with Christopher Reeves. It's a classic. You should totally watch it. So here's how it works. Superman in Superman 1 meets Lois Lane as Clark Kent, and he falls deeply in love with her. And in Superman 2, he decides, when he's discovered, because Lois Lane is an investigative reporter, she discovers that he is Superman. So he reluctantly shares his secret identity that he is Superman and, tells Lois Lane that he's in love with her. And he decides that in order to live a healthy life with her, that he has to give up his superpowers. He has to give up his superpowers so he can live a normal life with Lois Lane. This is the premise of the movie. So he gives up his superpowers. He goes up to the Fortress of Solitude. He gives up his superpowers. And what happens next? General Zod comes in and forces the President of the United States to kneel before Zod. And the entire world goes under the control of General Zod. Clark Kent, normal man now, not super, has to watch in horror as his decision to give up his powers for love left the world without its defenses. So what does he do? Well, he is still Superman at heart. He sacrifices himself and walks across the frozen tundra to try and get back to the Fortress of Solitude. This could have killed him as a normal man at this point. But he knows he has to do something. He knows that he can't leave the world defenseless. He has to do whatever he can. So he does. And he finally makes it back to the Fortress of Solitude. And I don't want to spoil the movie for you, but he gets his powers back because they wouldn't have had a Superman 3 otherwise. He battles General Zod and the others and eventually saves the day. Hurrah. And then at the end of the movie, he flies back and puts the roof of the White House back on and looks right at the president and says, "I'm sorry I was gone, Mr. President. I won't let you down again." Child as I see this. So what do I take away from this? One, the minute you do something for yourself, disaster will come for those you love. Second thing I learned, never let your guard down, or you will literally let down the President of the United States. Now, before you go internalizing these same messages, again, I was a child and I've gone through a lot of therapy to uncover that these are dangerous messages that I've internalized. So none of that was healthy, okay? That was all very disturbing for me as a child. But I did learn some values from it. When I look back at what I got out of that movie for me, was I learned the values of responsibility to take care of others, to protect people, to sacrifice yourself and to be courageous in the face of danger and to be resilient enough to keep getting back up, and that you can't wait around. You have to actually get up and take action. I learned all these lessons from a movie, and they were really impactful for me. So I want to just pause for a minute and give you a second to question for yourself, what experiences have impacted you that shape some of the values that you have? It could be a movie. It could be something that happened to you in your childhood. It could be something that happened to you last week, that you are forming a way of looking at the world based upon that experience. Now, I know some people probably can't relate to taking their values from a movie. So let me make it real for you. More of my origin story. That's my dad right there. And my dad was a funeral director. I was around death. If you can't see it right there, that's a skull around his neck. He took it really seriously. So I was around death a lot for most of my life. And my dad used to say to me when I was a kid, find something that you love to do so you don't get stuck burying dead people. Very morbid thought here at the Heroic Leadership Conference. I am sorry for that, but it's important, and I'm going to move on from it. What that taught me, what he encouraged me to do, was to look for things that I was passionate about, things that made me come alive. And that sent me down the road of wanting to be the starting point guard for the New York Knicks. Before you pull out your phones, no, I was not the starting point guard for the New York Knicks. Didn't happen. I will forever regret that. So that didn't happen. From 13 on, I tried to do that and it didn't work. So I had this idea of possibility that I could do it though. I was always filled with that, and I still to this day hold on to the feeling that you can do things that you set your mind to. I mean, not within reason, obviously. But what happened was that at that pivotal age that many of you are at right now, where maybe some of you are filled with possibility about the ways that you're going to change the world, you might start hearing this. You might start hearing people say, be realistic. Don't go for that thing you want. Go for the safe choice. I heard that. So naturally, what did I do when I wasn't getting basketball scholarships? I decided, you know what? I'm going to go to college and I'm going to go to film school. And in film school, I decided that I was going to become a world famous director like Stanley Kubrick, like Martin Scorsese, like Alfred Hitchcock, like Quentin Tarantino. I was going to make stories that were going to change the world. That was my plan. That's what I left high school to do. So, high school. My last day was May 28th, 1998. And I was all ready to go to Temple University to study film and media arts and make movies that would change the way people saw the world. And as happens, basically every single day, about 17,000 times a day, my mother got into a car accident that day. But it wasn't a fender bender. It was much more serious than that. It was actually 9 hours in the operating room, 8 pints of blood, 3 weeks in a coma. My last day of high school. We were going to have a graduation party. She went one town over to get the good fish. Changed my life instantly. Changed her life instantly. She was about to go to college to social work school for a graduate degree, actually. She had a scholarship from the American Association of University Women. They give it out to one person every year amongst hundreds of applicants. She was going to help aging people navigate the complexities of aging. And her life changed in an instant. And so did mine. And then just a few years later, while I was in college, 9/11 happened. So I had tons and tons of trauma to deal with. All sorts of trauma. All of these horrible things that kept me in a state of hypervigilance as I was just out there, just a humble kid trying to change the world. But trauma isn't a thing. How we react to trauma is what matters in most cases. And for me, I found purpose in my trauma. I looked at these events and said, what can I take away from this? How can I keep going? It underscored the need for responsibility. It amplified what I learned as I was, taking away from Superman 2. But it created an urgency in me that this is a mission that has to happen. So my mom lived through it. I took care of her. It was great. She passed away last year. It was sad, but it taught me a lot. So I'm going to ask you again, what significant events have impacted you? And I want you to not only think about it from the present state, but I want you to be thinking about, as you go forward in your life, I have news for you. It's not going to be easy. There are going to be things that come in your way, either at the macro level, things like 9/11 and all sorts of climate change and all the things that are happening. And then there's going to be things that happen in your micro level. And those traumas are opportunities for you to think about what you value. I saw that in my trauma, I uncovered what I value. I saw that it allowed me to define my purpose. There's a question that all of you have probably been asked at some point. What do you want to be when you grow up? Anybody here ever been asked that? Can I see a show of hands? It's the only audience participation I'm asking for. Seen it, right? Okay, I'm gonna ask you a more important question. Who do you want to be? What type of a person? What is your purpose? What are your values? What is driving you? Because I guarantee that whatever career you think you're going into is most likely going to change at some point. It's going to be squiggly. So what you're going to do, that's fine. I'm not telling you to stop taking tests. I'm not telling you to stop having a specific ambition, but I am telling you that you should dig deep and think about what your life mission statement is. What's going to drive you when you hit a point of trauma? All right, so if you know those things, I want you to know that you will always know where you're going, because that is going to be your North Star. What has always driven me is living a life of impact and making sure that every day counts. That's mine. I need you to find yours. So we've covered why we get stuck. We get stuck because we're scared. We get stuck because we're uncertain if we can do it. We doubt, become apathetic. So now we got to talk about how we do it, right? That's what you all came for. You want to know how to become superhuman. Great, but first, I'm sorry, but we got to fight some villains. There's a couple villains that all of you are going to face, and I want to share two of mine with you that you're all probably familiar with. Okay, so the first one I call Professor Akar, and if you'll notice, this villain has my face. Why? Because he's in my ear all the time, and you know him too, or her. He tells you you're not smart enough. You don't know enough to talk on this topic. You shouldn't raise your hand. You shouldn't get up in front and start speaking because you simply don't know enough. Sometimes we call Professor Akar imposter syndrome, but this is a specific one. It's about your knowledge. It's when you feel like you don't know enough. Well, I'm going to teach you how to defeat Professor Akar. You defeat him first through preparation. So part of being able to overcome that fraud syndrome is to know that you've put in the work, is to do the work, is to train, is to get better. But the second one, and this is ever more important, especially for people in your generation, remember, I spent over 10 years working in social media. And the second one is anchors. What do I mean by anchors? Anchors are an irrational attachment to a particularly arbitrary benchmark. You see someone else doing better than you. You think you should be smarter than you currently are. Somebody else in your class knows more than you. A friend of yours got into a better college. Change your anchors, and you can change how you relate to Professor Akar and send him into the background. Don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to who you want to be, and do the work so that you feel prepared for any battle that comes with it. That's Professor Akar, and he's the first villain that we had to defeat. And thankfully, together, with all of your attention and energy, we did it. But there's another villain lurking in the background. And I call him the Draven, because he emerges from the shadows. Now, this is another imposter syndrome that you will face. And it's about your performance. It's not about your knowledge. It's about you, how you show up If you're standing on this stage, do you feel awkward? Do you feel out of place? Do you feel like, why do I do that thing with my hands? Why do I do that thing with my face? The Draven is an evil coach who lurks in the background, always telling you that your performance isn't up to par. But the good news is, the same way that you defeat Professor Akar is the same way that you defeat the Draven. You've got to be prepared, and you have to change who you anchor to. I did not set foot on a stage for years because I started getting involved in this public speaking group, and I started feeling very intimidated because there were all of these amazing speakers who were so much better than me. And it stopped me from letting my own light shine up here. Change your anchors, defeat the Draven. All right, there's just one more though. It's a final boss. The final boss is one that you're all going to be familiar with, even if you are not the type to deal with imposter syndrome quite yet, and you haven't faced the Draven or Professor Akar. There is one more final boss. Are you ready to face the final boss? Great, love all that energy. So the final boss is you. Each and every one of you are the canvas for all of your brightest and darkest moments. You are going to be the one that stops you from doing extraordinary things more so than anything else. And I'm not saying that there's not systemic issues out there or problems in front of you. There are. But you are going to be your greatest battle, and you're going to have to face you every single day. There are going to be days where you don't want to get up and do the work. There's going to be days where you don't feel like you're up to it or good enough. You are always going to be that battle, and you'll never beat it. You'll just always keep fighting that battle. But I know you can do it. So we've covered that. Now I'm going to teach you the how, and this is how we're going to close out. I'm going to teach you the Superhuman framework. This framework can absolutely change your life. And I love speaking to audiences of this average age because you're not jaded yet. Yet being the operative word. When I speak to older cohorts, there's too much of that, yeah. I know my life could be extraordinary. But it can. And I'm going to show you the framework for doing it. I discovered it a little too late in life. I hope you take some joy in knowing it at this stage in your life. So it's 5 meta abilities. By meta abilities, I mean abilities that if you learn these abilities, they introduce you to other abilities. So this is how you become superhuman. The first is learning. You have to constantly be in pursuit of new knowledge and information. Constantly be looking to increase your skills and abilities, and that starts by learning. And part of learning requires you to think. You really have to analyze the things that are coming into your purview. As you learn things, there's going to be good information, bad information, information that resonates with you, information that doesn't. As I said at the beginning here, some people in this audience, this entire talk is going to just land. It's going to rock. You're going to love it. Some of you are already bored and want to go home. Hopefully not me. So thinking is where you're able to then process these ideas and decide, do they work for me? Do I understand them? Am I thinking about them critically, strategically, logically? Can you think in all of these individual ways? Next is communication. The more you can work on your ability to communicate, let me just say this, anything that you are going to do, any single one of you, whatever ambition you have, you are going to be dealing with other human beings. Guaranteed. You live in a society, you live amongst people, any job you have, any relationship you're in, communication is going to be one of the most essential things. The more you can learn about effective communication, persuasion, empathy, listening, being able to effectively transmit information from one place to another with your desired intent and outcome, the stronger you're going to be. The next one, and this is the theme of this conference, is leadership. And I am a huge fan of leadership. I have a book coming out in January on it called The Lovable Leader. Buy it. Leadership is your ability to go beyond what you yourself can do. You cannot form a movement by yourself. You need people with you. And leadership doesn't mean you have to be the CEO or the captain at the front of the ship. It can mean that you're showing leadership in your individual role. Leadership is going to be how you take the knowledge that you now have understanding of and that you can communicate effectively, and you're going to be able to build a movement with it. And then the final piece is about action, building a bias towards action. So many of us get trapped in our head battling Professor Akar and the Draven, and we don't take action. We don't get out there and actually do the thing that we know that we should be doing to make the impact we're trying to make, to live that purpose that we've defined. Those are the 5 meta abilities, and they can exist as what I would call meta abilities, the ability that when you learn those 5 skills, they lead you to other things, but it can also be applied linearly. And what I mean by that is that you can start with learning and thinking, move that to communication, then leadership and action. I'll give you a visual aid. There we go. So it works like this. This is how you can continually, let's say you wanted to do anything in life. Let's say you wanted to become, a director in your company, or let's say that you wanted to be the president of a particular club. This is the process you would follow. First, learn about how others have done it. Read books, watch online courses, do things, learn about it, think about it, understand it, synthesize it, be able to communicate it, be able to have your ideas be heard by others. Then lead. Go out there and build a movement behind you and make sure you're taking action. So I leave you with this today, a couple questions to ask yourself. What do you want? Why do you want it? What are your core values? Think about and find out what you feel your purpose is and let it guide you. And then work on your ability to improve learning, thinking, communicating, leading, and taking action. And if you can do all of those things, then you can join in the superhero movement and actually make an impact and a difference in the world. And I really want you to do that. I hope you took this to heart, because truth is, we need you. A lot of stuff going out there and we have a lot of problems to solve. And in this room are a lot of leaders. That's why you came to this conference. You're already leaders. Continue stepping up, become superhuman. We need you.